Historia Reiss, Krista Lenz, the true ruler of the walls, and the love interest of our dear Ymir. Her name, her title, and the people she's surrounded by define who she is. But, who is she really? Is she truly the selfless person we've seen who would give Sasha the last of her food? The person who would risk her life to save Daz, even at the cost of her own life? Or is she a person who will go even as far as sacrificing humanity if it meant she can get the outcome she desired?
To get sick of humanity. I say let him get wiped out by Titans. And if that makes me an enemy of humanity, so be it. I don't care if I'm the worst girl who's ever lived.
Today, I'm here to tell you the Historia you've come to know might not be the person who you thought she was. Before we get started with this video, I just want to say if the audio quality sounds better, it's because I did get a new mic and it's honestly amazing. And I'm going to keep upgrading my equipment to make my videos more visually and audibly appealing. If you guys hit that like button, share the video, and if you're really enjoying my content, then subscribe. It will mean the world to me, and also help others who enjoy content just like this come across it as well. But without further delay, let's get back to the topic of the video. Historia, formerly known as Krista Lenz, was always shown to be a curious, kind, and caring individual. As I said before, she was a person who would go out of her way to give Sasha the rest of her food because she was still hungry, and even try to save Daz from an awful blizzard even if it meant putting her own life in danger, as she would rather die than to leave behind one of her comrades. While she has done more noble, selfless things that don't implicate the person who she truly is deep down, such as becoming the ruler of the walls for her people so they won't have to live under a false king or someone who will lead them to their deaths because of the founder, opening and running an orphanage for the children from the underground city, which is littered with endless crime, and even potentially inheriting the beast Titan so humanity within the walls could be saved. Remember that last part for later, as it's going to be an important part to this video. But other things she's done, like the things I've mentioned before, while not as drastic in nature, still show the person she truly is, and we have our dear Ymir to thank for that. Also, before I move forward, I actually just remembered she told Erwin the way she wanted to become queen was selfish, so take that as you will. Anyway, Ymir, as many people know, lived a life full of lies, and when she got a second chance at life again after eating Marcel, made a vow to herself to be true to who she truly was, and yes, as we know, it wasn't so easy for her, as she was unknowingly still living a lie, but that's besides the point, and I'll touch on that in her own video very soon. But because of this vow, she also didn't like being around others who lived a lie, for example Historia, but at that time, we knew her as Krista Lenz. Ymir, while infatuated with Krista, always knew her true identity to be Historia Reiss, and even knew she was related to the true royal bloodline of the walls. With this information in mind, Ymir knew Historia to be living a lie, and even beyond that, knew what sort of person she truly was by calling her out at every turn she got, like giving Sasha the rest of her food. Granted, this scene alone doesn't mean much, but I believe it foreshadows a much deeper dive into who Historia could be deep down, and she's not as nice as we thought her to be, that she only cares about how people view her and her need for self-preservation. Or, I can be completely off the mark with this one-off scene and say this was Ymir's introduction into who she thinks she herself truly is, and later on down the line discovers that she really isn't as selfish as we thought. But let's say that for another video, because honestly, I believe both of these takes to be correct. But for my first take, you will definitely have to pay attention to understand my take on Historia here, because it could get confusing. So, as far as Historia caring for the way people view her, that goes hand in hand with my perceived notion that she's more selfish than we initially believed. This can be seen at multiple instances, but the two most prominent I believe to be the most alluring, if you want to disregard the Potato Girl scene, was when she was trying to save Daz from the blizzard. Ymir calls her out by saying she didn't ask for help once, but instead actively asking her to push on ahead by herself. She believes Historia has no intention of saving Daz, and is only trying to find a reason so she can die and be remembered as a hero. The shocked expression on her face says it all, that the words Ymir is speaking to her here, such as she resigning herself to death, and only making it seem like she wants to save Daz, ring true. Ymir continues to taunt her after calling her a good girl, but telling her what she's doing is what a bad girl would do. And after Historia actively tries to deny these claims, Ymir reveals what she truly knows about Historia. She reveals she knows she's the daughter of the mistress who had people after her life. And after Historia confirms this, Historia asks why did she enter the cadet corps to find her, and Ymir says it's because they're similar. And keep in mind, at this point in Ymir's life, she was living selfishly, doing everything for her own benefit, and as a person who also lived a lie, who else would be better to spot someone who was not only as selfish as she claims herself to be, but also pointing out a person living a lie of their own. Ymir tells her, instead of using that passion she has to die and make others concerned about who she is happy, to instead use that to change her fate, and later on down the line, she does. And this is what we'll see in the second instance I'm about to talk about. So, as powerful as the scene with Ymir is, this scene is also just as powerful and might just be the crux of what makes the story more selfish than you initially thought. This will also lead to the final scene I'm going to be discussing as well, that I'm sure many people overlooked in the final season, and it truly does make her the worst girl who ever lived. So as I said before, Historia did indeed care about the way people viewed her, and this moment is no exception. When Historia was tasked with inheriting the founding Titan due to her father's manipulation, she indeed seriously intended to eat Eren. She states that it wasn't to save humanity, but because she wanted to believe her father was right, showing us that she valued the opinion of her father over the salvation of humanity. And if you haven't realized it yet, this is her doubling down on her not caring about humanity at all. That's when she saved Eren from underneath the chapel. She says humanity should be wiped out. We see her selfish desire to be seen in a good light by people whose opinion she values. She wasn't going to become the founder for humanity's sake. And this leads me to my final point. As I said before, I wanted you to remember Historia was supposed to inherit Zeke's Beast Titan in his original plan to save Paradis Island, although she didn't want to. Eren stands up for her and says there has to be another way because up until this point, he never wanted to sacrifice Historia for the sake of Paradis. This is why he kept how he initially used the founder's power for a brief moment secret. This makes Historia cry, and I'm sure she's grateful for the words of Eren, but I also believed her to be relieved. Becoming a Titan Shifter is a life that has been shown time and time again in this series to be a life no one would want. And those who have become shifters don't impose their power on the world, but are used by others to impose theirs. Now the reason I say she is relieved is because of the scene of Eren telling Historia his true plan to unleash the rumbling and destroy the world. Historia does indeed plead with Eren to stop and not to commit this atrocity, but he's already made up his mind. He tells her the military plans to have her inherit Zeke's Beast Titan, even if it's against her will, and tells her their only options are to either fight the MPs or run away. Historia states that she already knows this, and resigns to her fate of becoming the Beast Titan for the survival of Paradis Island, and says she'll go along with it. Keep in mind, prior to this scene, Historia previously said humanity should be wiped out when defying her father. She was adamant against sacrificing herself, so why the sudden change? Well, the thing is, she didn't change. She remembers Eren standing up for her in the meeting when Zeke's plan was first proposed, and she thanks him for that. Like I said, becoming a Titan Shifter is a life no one would want. Eren tells her she may be fine with the outcome of her being sacrificed, but he's not, and he's going to proceed to unleash a rumbling. While she pleads with him not to finalize that decision, she even goes as far as uttering the words Ymir spoke to her the day she saved everyone from the tower, saying if she doesn't do everything she can to stop Eren, then she won't be able to live a life she can be proud of anymore. Eren proceeds to tell her that if she can't take what he's saying or what he's about to do, then to just keep quiet, and after everything is over, he will manipulate her memories with the founder. She says she can't do that, and Eren says she can. She can because she saved him back then, and that makes her the worst girl who ever lived, a phrase she once said about herself. As we know, that scene of Historia and Eren speaking had taken place months before the rumbling was initiated, and Historia said she would do everything she could to stop Eren. But why didn't she? Because of her innate desire for self-preservation, and her true feelings toward her dedication for humanity, whether it be within or outside the walls. To be honest, while she does look pained for the decision she's making, I believe it was an easier decision than we initially believed. When provided with all the evidence, at the end of the day, it shows who Historia truly is deep down, and that she's indeed a selfish person, and the worst girl who's ever lived. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if you agree with me down in the comments below. Make sure you guys leave a like, share the video, and if you're really enjoying my content and want to support me, then subscribe as it helps with the video and my channel and the YouTube algorithm, and I won't be able to thank you guys enough. And until next time, I'll see you later.